Kicking off the show this morning live in our studios. We appreciate him coming by. He is the governor of North Dakota, Doug Burgum, and he's on his way to the State House to file his intention, or he's running for president. He'll be giving his check to the Secretary of State and sitting down and meeting with all the media just not far from us at the State House. Governor, thanks for being on the show. Good morning, New Hampshire, and you're filing today in the Granite State.
Well, Jack, great to be with you, and yes, excited to be filing today. I just want to say gratitude to all the citizens of New Hampshire. This First in the Nation primary is more important than ever. We've got a situation going on now where you've got pundits and media and channels that are trying to narrow the field, and that's the voters' job. And as voters in places like New Hampshire and Iowa, where people actually pay attention, show up, get involved, meet candidates multiple times, I can't tell you how important it is, especially when we're living in this soundbite world where people prioritize conflict between candidates over substance and leadership, integrity, and all of the things that actually are going to take to lead our country through the economic and national security challenges we have. And so it's like the role of the New Hampshire voter has become more important than ever.
You know, has it been an eye-opening experience for you, having been an entrepreneur, successful business person, governor of a state with a pretty good record on the economy, lower taxes, good energy policies, to come out and run? And the narrative each day is it's Biden and Trump's and, forget anyone else. It's almost like the media just plays to the noise.
Well, they do. That's the narrative. But then you talk to the people, and the number one thing they say is we want choices other than what we had in 2020. That's the one thing Americans could probably agree on right now. So I've never seen a mismatch between what the quote capital T capital N the narrative is versus what people on the ground are actually saying and what they're talking about. You mentioned inflation, and of course everybody's feeling that in their pocketbook, and we need candidates that are going to talk about that and have lived in the economy. I look up and down that debate stage. I've created more jobs than all the rest of them combined. I've been making payroll every 2 weeks since I was in my mid-20s, and we got people that have never even been in the economy, and then people are, talking about, people are saying, hey, somebody should drop out. Somebody should drop out. We got to narrow the field. Well, maybe everybody who's never worked in the private sector should drop out. Yeah,
well, let me come back. Well, I'm going to stay on that. We're talking about a former governor in this state, Craig Benson, someone who I know well, and you remind me of him somewhat. And he got involved and ran. And people, voters say, I want a business person in there. I want someone to go down there and run Washington like I have to run my business, like I have to run my household. And then when you get someone who's not a politician in Washington, it's like an organ, the body rejects the organ. It's like, the system doesn't like someone who's a business person who knows how to get stuff done. I mean, look at the debt. Look at the possible, the government shutdown that was averted. Look at the chaos in Washington. It's not how you run a business, and yet that's our government.
Right. But not all business leaders are created equal. I mean, it depends on what sector you came from. I came from working in software. Even though I grew up in agriculture, work every job I had, I took a shower at the end of the day. I spent 30 years building globally competitive software companies where you had to have a lower price, better quality, and better service tomorrow than you did today. So you're constantly cutting things out and only focusing on what mattered to your customers. So when I translated my business experience into the state of North Dakota, that's how we were able to cut 27%, 1.7 billion we cut out of the state budget my first 4 months in office, and all the trains left on time. But technology is going to change every job, every company, every industry, and we've never had someone running for president who's got a technology background. That's how you actually reduce the size of government, is you deliver better services at a lower cost.
You listened to North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum on his way to file at the State House for running for president here in our primary. Also coming up this morning, we're going to hear from 2 or 3 other presidential candidates in the state who are doing the same thing. Governor, my memory's okay still, which I guess is a good thing. And you had talked, one of our earlier interviews, about how energy policy does matter. And I don't want to I just look at you, and I could do probably hours on what's happening between Israel and Hamas, and of course what could happen broader if Hezbollah does something from the north. Eyes on Tehran. We can talk about what was behind this, who paid for it, who encouraged it, and this is still in the middle of this. And I've always been, being an American who believes in our military and our system, I think you support the people in right now. You can debate stuff later, but my point is energy policies may have emboldened countries like Tehran. Certainly, it's helping Russia fight the war in the Ukraine because the higher gas and natural gas prices and oil, and also China. And you talked about that once at length. And sometimes our energy policy, I think people need to realize this, does affect security, and it emboldens the bad guys. Am I right or wrong?
You're 100% right, Jack. And when we announced on June 7th we're running for president, we said we're going to talk about three things at every stop. We're going to talk about the economy, energy policy, national security. Why? Because those three things are all interlinked and they cannot be separated. And you're absolutely right. And then who's winning? When we have people, I'm running against candidates that say, we shouldn't be involved in Ukraine, let Russia win. A win for Russia is a win for China. Why? Because Russia's become China's discount gas station. Not just this horrifically bad. Can you imagine, any time growing up where you'd say, our president of the United States is going to go into a negotiation like they did 3 weeks ago, and we're going to trade 5 of our team for 5 of their team in a hostage exchange. But, we have to throw in $6 billion to the team, Iran, who's the world's largest sponsor of state terrorism. Iran's the parent company. Biden had a conference yesterday, didn't even mention the word Iran. He talked about Hamas. They're a subsidiary. They're one of the people that get the funding. And so he's funding both sides of the war. Biden,
you think that was a tacit encouragement to Tehran to sort of boost, to support Hamas to go in and do this atrocity?
Well, it's just, we've been working on appeasement since Obama was in office. Let's appease Iran. Mm-hmm. Let's figure out a way to try to, work this out. That's like some idea that came out of the liberal elite colleges, when in fact these guys are, it's not the people of Iran. It's the Ayatollahs. I mean, they've got a goal. Death to America, death to Israel.
Obliterate Israel.
Right. And then Iran's been providing drones to Russia. So when we send $6 billion to Iran, we're funding Russia and we're funding Iran. We got Joe Biden's appeasement policies are actually funding our enemies with military equipment to go fight against us. We're in a proxy war with Russia. We're in a proxy war with Iran. We're in a cold war with China. And all of this is happening because of what you said. The energy policies are empowering dictators and tyrants around the world, and they're funding them. Iran's exports of oil and gas have skyrocketed this summer. They're supposed to be under sanctions. Right. They're selling tens of billions of dollars of oil to China. China's filling their strategic reserves, and Biden was reducing ours.
Do you think we should relook at some sanctions if we can find any evidence at all that Tehran was encouraging or supported Hamas?
Yeah, we should freeze every asset that we were unfrozen, and we should actually enforce the sanctions that are in place.
Yeah, I'd use the analogy yesterday that anyone trying to appease Tehran was almost like during World War II with Hitler before his march across Europe. Hey, let me just
the Neville Chamberlain Award goes to the Biden administration.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about yesterday. Hey, real quickly, Governor, before we let you go to file at the State House, we thank you for coming and stopping by. Good morning, New Hampshire, the Pulse of an Age. Governor Doug Burgum, North Dakota. Do you think this Trump lead in the Suffolk University and these polls is accurate, or do you think it's missing possibly independent voters or different types of voters who might take part in this? In other words, do you think you're doing better here than the polls indicate?
Well, absolutely. And we've also got the highest upside because we're still the least known candidate in New Hampshire. We're the least known candidate in Iowa. We got super high favorables. We got a ton of upside. And I think the poll question they don't talk about, they interviewed primary voters in the early states and asked how many of them they thought that the primary campaign was in full swing. 25%. 75% are still worried about getting food on the table and gas in their car, and they're worried about their economic security. We know that the lead has switched in these early races, 5 out of 7 the last races within a month of when the election had. I mean, so when someone like Newt Gingrich goes on and says the race is over, everybody should drop out and endorse the former president, you're like, well, maybe we should just cancel the NFL season too, because maybe Newt already knows who's going to win the Super Bowl.
Good analogy. Hey, we're going to let you get to the State House. Thanks for swinging by our studios. I appreciate it, Governor Burgum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack. Great